Our distinguished guests, starting with the Principal Secretary, the State Department of Energy, Mr. Alex, and the rest of them are displayed there. I mentioned our because we didn't have his picture, and my apologies on the display behind us. The Principal Secretary has I just want to thank you very much. He has just landed this morning. I must say I give him credit, but that he is actually with us. Why don't we give him a warm round of applause? And then understanding that we give him the first chance to make his comments. And then after that, he has to run to his office, but the many matters within the State Department that need to be addressed that are waiting for him. So we will agree to his request to release him once his presentation speech. But the one thing I know, colleagues from the ministry, we have Engineer Kiva here. The gentleman, right-hand side, is with us. If you could raise up your hand, please. Engineer Kiva, the active MD of Ketraco. And we also have the REC, the Renewable Energy Corporation, so that those hard questions that maybe want to go to the PS will not get lost. We have the two distinct and others to give you answers. With those few remarks, opportunity at the position where you on your mic, feel free to give your comments. So the floor is you. Yes.
Thank you very much, moderator. Good morning, everyone. First of all, it's a pleasure to be amongst you and to give a few opening remarks in regard to renewable energy. Kenya is one of the countries that is in the globe releasing about 91% clean energy. Of our built capacity of 3,322 megawatts, 73% of it is from clean energy. Clean energy being and renewable energy, that being hydropower. We have geothermal. We are blessed with immense potential of geothermal. We are also blessed with very good wind corridors. And the fact that we lie within the equator, that means we have an average 8 to 10 hours of sunlight. And so therefore, we're able to generate renewable energy from solar, from wind, from geothermal, and from hydropower. I want to say that the journey for us to get to where we are has been a journey that has been made through deliberate efforts by the previous governments from 1963 up to now. In that, you know very well, by the time you're doing a feasibility study, looking for funds, putting up a power plant, it takes you not less than 8 to 10 years. By the time you get a greenfield, do a feasibility study, look for funds, build a power plant, it takes about 8 to 10 years. There have been deliberate efforts from government for us to develop our clean energy, and it is our hope that we can be able to generate clean energy by the year 2030, 100% clean energy. Right now we are at 91%, but we should be able to get to 100% by the year 2030. On the same note, we are hoping that we can be able to get clean cooking by the year 2028. We have also made deliberate efforts to increase our connectivity. The year 2013, we had about 29% of Kenyans connected to the grid. Today, as we speak, we are at 73%. We are hoping that within the next 4 years, we can be able, 4 or 5 years, we can be able to get to 100% connectivity. How shall we do that? For those counties and those places where they are off grid, we are looking into developing what we call mini grids. And in that regard, we have a very good program run by, funded by World Bank. That is the Kenya Off-Grid Solar Acceleration Program and Kenya Energy Modernization Program. Those two programs will be able to help us achieve the 100% connectivity in terms of connecting Kenyans 100% to the grid. But this journey, of course, has challenges. One of the challenges, of course, one is financing. Everybody is handling financing. The other is, of course, our way of doing business. One of our way of doing business is when we are doing transmission lines, for example, one of our main costs is usually land acquisition and wayleave acquisition. The other challenge, of course, and that comes in terms of us developing a geothermal and what have you, in terms of the letters of support, we have a small challenge at the moment because of the existing moratorium, as you are aware. But as government, realizing that we have an increasing peak demand of power, average between 10 and 15% annually. Today we are at 2149 peak demand. Realizing that we have low hydros at the moment, then geothermal becomes our base load. We are doing well with geothermal, contributing to about 50% of our base load, 45 to 50%. But we need to do more because with geothermal, we are sure that it is available. It is our base load. So we are looking forward once in the near future, I'll not mention the time, once we are able to lift the moratorium, after putting a few things in place, we should be able to accelerate the construction of geothermal wells. That is probably Olkaria 6 and Olkaria 7. We have Paka and Silale. We are looking into also getting Menengai into the grid in April. So one of the things that we can assure you as a ministry is that one, we remain committed to developing clean energy. Two, as the country is looking to going into industrialization, we are hoping that we can be able to capture and market Kenya as a green energy destination. And so therefore, products being sold from Kenya by our manufacturers, we are hoping should be able to compete competitively within the globe as products that have been developed through clean energy. Ladies and gentlemen, we are seated here as key enablers and key participants who the government of Kenya is looking into to partner together. I was just whispering to some of you some of the challenges that we face with wind and solar, in that wind and solar are, yes, they are clean energy, but they are intermittent sources of power. When you walk to the National Control Center and you look at the dispatch, you look at the graph, you realize that when there is a wind starts building up from, for example, in Kipeto Wind Farm, start building up from 2 or 3 p.m. Then by 3:30 p.m., when you are thinking that it will have picked up, the wind suddenly disappears and appears again at around 5. That time probably Lake Turkana again, the wind has dropped. So we are looking into now embracing, and should funds allow, for us now to reduce the intermittency. We are looking into having battery energy storage in our wind farms and solar farms, such that we can be able to dispatch power consistently, such that it will not affect our grid. One of our main plants, that is Takwel. Takwel has been having a challenge, but the good thing is that as we do the transmission lines, we are now in the process of the last stages of doing a transmission line that will help us evacuate as much power from Olkaria, realizing that during the day, because of the solar plants that are around Eldoret, evacuating power from Otum, from Takwe, that line sometimes is constrained. And so therefore we cannot dispatch as much as possible the available hydro from Takwe as possible. So ladies and gentlemen, those are some of the few challenges that we are facing in the sector. Of course, transmission line is we have not done enough. Most of you that I've spoken to, at least we have partners who are doing the Rabai Kilifi line. We have partners here who are doing that, and many other transmission lines. So we are looking into each and every one of us playing the role that they require, with one main aim of ensuring that Kenya attains the goal of becoming a green destination, generating 100% power as clean power by the year 2030. So James, I want to hand it over to you so that probably I can take one of 3-4 questions.
Okay.
And that can guide us in terms of how we move forward.
Okay.
Before then, I excuse myself. As James had said, I just landed in the morning at 7:30. Went straight to 2 meetings. I'm here. Of course, you know, when you're in government and you are away from your desk for 2-3 days, the amount of paperwork that awaits you and the number of visitors that awaits you is quite much. So it's not that I do not want to stay with you for long, but I'll humbly ask you that after about an hour or so, you allow me to go and handle the other issues that could be pressing. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Those are my few remarks, but I'm ready to pick up a few questions.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Bwana PS. Let's give him a warm round of applause. Certainly excellent comments, candid comments about where the country is in as far as renewable energy is concerned. And to me also the success that the country has had in terms of going green. So thank you very much, Bwana PS. Now that you have indicated you have about an hour or so, perhaps what we could do, we had a few questions that I thought could help us start the debate. So we are going to change our format. Bit of a challenge with the microphone, yet it is on renewable energy. So maybe, thank you very much. So what we'll do is just go into about 2 questions to start with Mr. PS. And with those, spend the next few minutes soliciting questions specifically directed at the PS, so that when the PS is taking his leave, the audience will have felt that they have engaged government to a level where it appreciable level. And then we still have the panel here with us, a very wide panel. After the 2-3 questions from the audience for the PS, then we will go into our panel, which will now widen our discussion. I trust that that is okay. Thank you very much. So the first one that we would like to pose to you is, what is Kenya's vision in terms of development and deployment of renewable energy to address socio-economic and environmental imperatives in light of the imminent global energy transition? The world is now talking more and more towards transition. You may have partially perhaps mentioned a few things, but anything else that you would have to enrich that vision? It's just probably expounding on that vision in as far as development and deployment of renewable Energy. I would also want you to probably throw a small twist in terms of investors wishing to bring in large projects that need power, yet they would probably want to deal directly. There is the issue of willing, and I know we have Engineer Kiva here. So if that could probably start off the questions, Bwana PS.
Let me say that when I look at where we are as a country, I spent a little bit of time when I was in India with the minister from Zimbabwe for power. Then this morning, as I was flying back, I had one investor who has a factory in Nairobi, and they also have a factory in a country down south. I don't want to mention the name. And one of the things that that investor told me is that they are closing the factory in south and bringing that factory now having full authorization within Kenya. And the reason that investors told me that is because he told me that, yes, in Kenya, we are talking about the price of power. That is the conversation that we are talking about. We are not having a conversation about availability of power. The two conversations are totally different. That when you have an industry running and you have to source for alternative power, you have to run a generator for 14 hours, then your cost of production is much higher than that in a factory that is within Kenya that has access to power. Yes, the price may not be as favorable as we would want to be, but at least you have availability of power. You are sure that you can plan your productivity, realizing that you have available power. So how do we, for me, I saw an opportunity. We are about to complete the construction of a transmission line that is very critical between Isinya and Namanga. And once we do that transmission line, hoping that we are able to acquire Wave, because the only problem we are having with that transmission line is Wave acquisition. Then it means that we can be able now to trade power to the South African power pool. What does that mean? That means that within Kenya, the power that we have, the build capacity of 3,300 megawatts, and with low hydrology, we cannot be able to export our own power as it is now, because what we have is inadequate until the rains come, and then we have the hydros back, then now we can be able to export. But if things stay the way they are, then we cannot be able to export power. And realizing that the rains will be coming, hopefully, and God willing, then, and we are looking forward to attracting more investors who can be able now to put solar, more geothermal plants, and more wind. And when I say solar, it's solar battery backed and wind battery backed at a good price, because price is also a factor. Then it means that we have an opportunity to trade power within East African power pool and South African power pool. So in terms of renewable energy, we have an opportunity for one, generating power for our own consumption, and two, generating power for trading purposes. So those are two different parameters. Number three is with the sentiments that I got this morning, and I've gotten those sentiments elsewhere, and the way we are projecting Kenya as a place where you have clean power and we are hoping to transition to 100% green by the year 2030. It means that our power demand, currently it is growing at 10 to 15%. However, should we be able to optimize our available opportunity and attract more investors, it means that our power demand internally will be able to grow actually at a higher percentage. And so therefore, you can be able now to grow, to plan with that. You can be able now to invest in power generation and trade within ourselves. Third is we are looking forward to do a transmission line, the first 2 transmission lines under PPP. That is a public-private partnership. And once we do that, looking at the business opportunities within the power sector, we are seeing an opportunity whereby even the other remaining transmission lines may be done under PPP framework. So again, other than the power generation that we are saying that the private sector can come in. Also, the private sector can come in terms of building transmission lines. Last but not least, we also have an issue of clean cooking. We are hoping that we can be able to have clean cooking by the year 2028. And that means a lot of private sector involvement in terms of changing our clean cooking from biomass to now biogas and using electricity. And number 4, of course, is e-mobility. E-mobility, when we look at e-mobility, realizing that we are looking at areas where we are going to reduce our use of fossil fuel and using more of electricity and clean electricity, then it therefore means that opportunities are going to come in for the private sector in terms of generating power and also selling that power to our e-vehicles. Because those vehicles, for example, if you are moving a truck from Mombasa to Malaba, you cannot charge it in Mombasa and expect the truck to get to Malaba. That means that truck must be charged maybe at Emali, probably again at Naivasha, again at Salga. By the time it is getting to Malaba, it has been charged 4 times. It is not the government that is going to set up those charging points. It is the private sector that is going to charge those charging points, and those charging points can actually have solar-backed charging points that we can say that they will be hybrid sized, whereby you get power from the grid, and when you don't have it, you even have your solar panels to run the generation points and charge the vehicle. So the opportunities in terms of that lies ahead for us are immense, and I would say this is the time that investors need to get ready because the opportunities are immense, and there are those. And for me, I come from the school of thought that believes that success loves a prepared mind, and the people I see here, they are prepared mind and they are ready to take up the challenges that are ahead and the opportunities that lie ahead. So with those few remarks, those are the 4 or 5 main points. Excellent. I can clearly illustrate that those are the opportunities that are there to grab for the private sector.
Thank you.
In fact, for me, they are low-hanging fruits.
Okay, thank you very much. So plenty of opportunities for investment, and one key point there also is the issue of reliability of power. So it's not just a question of cost. Totally agree. In the 90s, when this country had a big power deficit, engagement between private sector and government led to diesel-powered plants becoming in Agreco, because it was an issue of better expensive power than no power. The alternatives were extremely costly, so we certainly are aligned with that. I want to ask the audience, anybody who may have a question for the PS, and the PS also, before he goes, he'll also listen to a few questions that will be thrown to the panels. So the gentleman at the back, if he can get the mic, and then do us a favor, and there's one gentleman here, make the question, nice and short and focused, so that we can get the gist of what it is that you would wish to know.
Thank you.
And give your name also and your organization.
Thank you. Eric Gonte is my name. I'm a circular economy expert. I come from Recycler International. My question to you, the PS, we are trying to decarbonize our economies by adopting the renewables. But equally, we may end up carbonizing the same economy based on the technology that we adopt. Based on where we are consumers of electric technology. We don't have our own manufacturing companies that produce technology. We are likely to consume technology that the first generation, second generation, and yet in the market, we have generation, the latest generation, maybe 6, 7. How do you see, how can we mitigate that aspect whereby the technology that we are consuming, we are being given a technology that is at the tail end of becoming obsolete? And then we find ourselves struggling to decommission or to dispose the same technology that we have already deployed in our economies. Thank you.
Just to understand you, that technology is in what context? The technology in
Solar panel, because the first generation
Okay.
of the solar panels were
Okay.
hard to recycle.
Okay.
But now we have got solar panels that are easy to recycle.
Okay.
So how do we manage that aspect?
Okay. So
And also batteries.
and batteries.
Yes.
Okay. So let's have one more question. There was a gentleman. Yes. The gentleman. Yeah.
Thank you. Hi, Principal Secretary. My name's Philip. I'm based in Kenya, and I've got a company called Pyrogen Energy. We're a waste to energy business, but we also look at waste heat recovery to electricity. The waste heat market in Kenya is massive, and the potential is massive there. And it taps into the industrial process. You touched on the biomass consumption. Of course, a lot of these industries are using heavy fuel oil as well to get their heat for the processes. And one of the aspects that we can do is tap into that heat, generate electricity. And some of these industries are 24-hour operations, so therefore it can contribute to baseload. The problem is the economics only work if there is a guaranteed PPA. And it relates a lot to the tie-in of baseload. Where are we with timings in terms of PPA with KPLC, et cetera, like that, and integrating that and speeding that process up?
Okay. Then we'll have one more, and then we'll allow the PS to give his response. I see one gentleman there.
Thank you. Good morning, panelists and Principal Secretary. My name is Weldon Rono. I am the Country Director of Tozo Green. We are in the renewable energy. We're developing a solar power plant in Lamu. About storage, you've talked about storage. Personally, ourselves, we have an issue with that. We sent our expression of interest about 2 years ago to Kenya Power and the relevant authorities, because what we wanted to do is that integrate storage with our solar plant. But the challenge is that we told that the policy of storage policy is not ready. So we just wanted to understand how far is that policy for the storage is, which will inform again the tariff. Secondly, is that this is a comment, and it's good that I've finally had the opportunity to meet you. So our company has designed a model out of our because the industry was a bit slow, as you know, during the moratorium period. We've designed a model where we think we can retire the fossil generation through geothermal without affecting the current PPAs. That means government not escaping the responsibility of paying the PPAs, but at the same time using geothermal to do a swap program. Okay, so basically what we want is that an opportunity and audience to be able to present this is going to probably go to experts and economists, but we've done something that we think it's important to the country. If we have an opportunity, we've done our own financial modeling and run the numbers to works. But that's our suggestion. Thank you.
Okay. You are, in short, you're asking for an appointment. So, so maybe that will make the answer from the PS short. I want us to allow the PS to answer that, and then I'm going to ask you just to hold it a little bit, because I can see we are almost 1 hour into the panel. There are good questions. I have seen the hands up. We'll allow then the panel just to also introduce themselves and ask some questions, and then we can see how we can give you an opportunity later on. So, Bwana PS, the floor is yours.
Let me start with the gentleman who has I didn't pick your name right because you, at that point when you mentioned your name, you didn't speak loudly enough. The gentleman seated to
Next.
your left side is the one who is in charge, other than currently acting MD Ketrako, is the man in charge of renewable energy.
Yes.
So therefore, I think you're in the right hands with him. Once now you're done with him and he is able to convince me that the proposal is good, then we should be able to have a discussion. So I'll challenge you to first of all have a sitting with him, make the proposal, then from there we pick it up from there. About technology. Technology is ever evolving. And sometimes we are too harsh on ourselves. And I'll give this example. In the year 2011, that's a time when some of the PPAs that we are having were signed. When those who were in office looked at the times that were there, they were able to sign solar and wind at prices that were not favorable in the current times and probably contributing to the high power bills. But at that point, the prices then looked feasible. Now, we see them as expensive. Case in point, if you look at, and then let me give an example of Kipeto Wind. When Kipeto Wind brought their turbines, one turbine right now is able to generate 1.5 megawatts. The current technology that we have now, we have turbines that are able to generate 5 megawatts per turbine. So probably, had that technology been there and our road infrastructure would have allowed, that is the technology that would have been allowed for Kipeto to come in, and Kipeto would now be generating more power with the same 60 turbines that they have than they are generating today. The same you would say with the Lake Turkana Wind. Lake Turkana Wind, their turbines, because of the road infrastructure then, when they were developing the Lake Turkana Wind, the turbines generate about 750 kilowatts. With the current technology, again, because we know there is a wind corridor around Bobisa, we are expecting that the investors will be able to put up the next wind farm close to where Loyangalani is. We shall not allow them to put up a wind farm that will generate the same megawatts as they are generating now. We require one turbine. Yes, it is bigger, but to be able to generate 5 megawatts and 6 megawatts, it's the same wind, same infrastructure, same place, but technology has allowed us to become better with time. So now, for me, how I answer that question is we need to embrace technology as it comes and involve us as it comes. Solar, for example. Now we have solar panels that are able even to follow the path of the sun. So they're able now to even have more optimization and more output compared to the solar plants that we have, for example, in Garissa. And I'll give an example of Garissa wind farm and solar farm and Malindi. Malindi solar farm has more output because when they were putting up the solar plant, the technology had evolved. So it is time for us to continuously embrace technology as it comes. Last but not least, we have our own Konza Technocity that we are hoping that should also be a pioneer in terms of developing technology. And that technology can be used in the rest of the world. So we have to embrace the technology, and sometimes we need not to be too harsh on ourselves, because sometimes you make decision now, but that decision, when you look forward after 3-4 years of research and what have you, then you realize that decision, if it was done 4 years later, you'd have changed that decision. Let me go to PPAs. As I said that we are not going to give you the time that will tell you that they will be lifted up next month or the month thereafter. But I can tell you from where we sit, it is work in progress. realizing that we have energy security to look into. And we cannot look into the energy security without working on the PPAs. And I've clearly said that we are aware of our energy needs in this country and the growth that there is. We need to lift and sign new PPAs that will come into the grid 2025, 2026, 2027, and moving forward, such that we are not caught up with the load shedding because we did not act in time. So there is work in progress. At the opportune time, we'll make the pronouncements. But one thing I can tell you for free is that the prices that were given then and the prices we are looking into, people need to go back and do their models again, because price will be a key component in terms of whether we are going to move forward with your PPA or not. And looking at the country, that's the conversation everybody wants to hear. That the cost of power, yes, now we have power that is available, but cost of power now is an issue. And for us to industrialize, we have to lower the cost of power. So yes, PPAs we are going to lift, but one of the key issues that we are going to be discussing is the price. Battery energy storage, yes. It is one of the things that we are looking into embracing at a price that is favorable to get into the grid. So again, let us not forget the issue of price. About the proposal, I gave you Engineer Kiva. He'll be able to guide you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, PS. I think very ably put. The benefits of new technology is what pushes out old technology. So what you have said, if I'm just imagining those wind farms, one turbine, 750 watts, and here is another one, 6 megawatts. That is certainly a major benefit that I can see that will displace those old technologies. I had asked that we pause our questions for the PS for a few seconds, and for a few minutes, and I asked my co-moderator, Marin, to now introduce and start also the questions to the other panelists. This is for the benefit of also the PS, just getting another perspective from the other panelists here. So Marin, maybe you can go for the next 3 of them, and then we can now come back to the audience for more questions to the PS.
Thank you, James. We're improvising here today, so we're doing the best of Kenyan improvising and German efficiency. So I hope we can get somewhere here. I will actually all the questions, we won't forget them, and the team from the PS is here, and they will surely take it up. So none of it is, but if we do the whole question before the panel, would be a little bit ridiculous. So I'm very happy. I'm also skipping my introduction because the PS has done it already, but I want to keep 2 things up. And you said investors get ready, and you see on this panel, investors are ready, and you see a lot of European Kenyan companies here on the panel. We will hear a little bit about themselves. To start off, I will just introduce the names and the companies, but with the first questions, we will say a few words about the companies, and I hope you can survive the first round of questions. So we go from my left. It's Thomas Tribula from PowerX. Then we have Juan Lasso Rodriguez. I hope I can pronounce it okay. From Alten. Kabengele Buet from Fichtner. Then Matteo Cavadini from Enel. Flores from Zulicom from Hydrobox. George Aluro from EcoEner. And then on the very far, it's my dear co-moderator, James Wangi, also from the energy business and a board member of KEPSA. And I myself am Maren Diala. I'm the head of the German chamber here and a member of the EBC board. So without further ado, just as I said, we are very happy to have a great panel here today of 6 companies that are already active in Kenya or almost on the edge of being active. And allow me to start with the first question in the middle to Kabengele Buet of Fichtner. He's a director of the Nairobi office of the German company Fichtner. They provide consultancy services for hydrogen, geothermal, hydropower, solar, wind, and energy storage projects. The company is active in Kenya already since 1992, so we are not all new here, and also responsible for the entire Eastern African region. So, first question to Kabengele. During the COP27 last year, the government of Kenya announced the plan to produce green ammonia and fertilizer by building 300 megawatt generation capacity. How do you think can the fertilizer be produced competitively, and where should the energy come from?
Thank you, Maren, for that question. You have thrown me in with a PSC on my left. That announcement that was made last year brought a lot of excitement into the sector, because we know the new government is in. We know the priorities the new government put on food security and agriculture. And if we go that as a starting point and go back, and the government wanting to produce their own fertilizer competitively, we have to go back into the value chain and say what is the main ingredients for that, if it's fertilizer from hydrogen, and then we'll come quickly to energy. So the question is, does Kenya have enough green energy, and at what price can it give that energy into the system or to producers of hydrogen to make ammonia and then to make green fertilizer? So an exciting topic, a topic which could probably fill the entire rest of this panel session. But what I would like to say is, we are, as Fichtner, are engineering consultants. We are looking at this case in Kenya, and we are optimizing the cost, the least cost of power generation, least cost of hydrogen production, least cost of ammonia production, and finally the least cost of fertilizer production, to see along the value chain how this can be optimized. When we look at the energy, to get cheap hydrogen, you need baseload, cheap baseload. And in our Kenyan setup, the cheap baseload which is available is geothermal or hydropower. If we look at the intermediate energy sources, we would have to find ways of supplementing that power in the hours we don't have that energy, to make it still competitive for the fertilizer to be competitive. So in the Kenyan setup, let's focus on how do we make geothermal as competitive as possible to enable also the end product, being the fertilizer, to be cheap enough for the government to implement its policy of providing cheap input to the agricultural sector and improve food security.
Thank you. I give to James for the second question, and I think it's also something that's very close to government activities.
Thank you. This one goes to Mateo of NL. NL Green Power is an independent power producer generating electricity from renewable energy sources such as solar, wind, geothermal, hydro. And in Africa, they have been present and investing in the continent, and have been investing in the continent for over 10 years. And currently they are managing about 2 gigawatt projects in operations already. So with all that experience, Mateo, especially because you've worked in Africa, the onboarding these projects, the conceptualizing of these projects, etc., are critical. The PS talked about a long gestation period, 8 to 10 years. So where do you see different mechanisms, of tendering, whether energy auctions, coming in to implement these new renewable energy projects, while, as mentioned by the PS, keeping the cost low? So maybe you can also share that with us, because it is critical if we are to drive this enhancement of generation capacity at a cost that will make the country competitive.
Everyone, I think it's a questions very much related to what the PS said at the very end. So the increase of share of renewable in the country, while also ideally lowering the system generation costs, which eventually translates into lowering the tariffs for the final client. So we've been operating in Africa since more than 10 years with, let me say, success specifically in South Africa, Zambia, Morocco, and we are developing a pipeline of different type of renewable technology projects in many African markets, including Kenya. What we've seen is that starting an efficient process to lower the system generation costs is not easy, but when done, it can produce results. The best case probably in the continent is the South African case. I'm talking only about the generation part of the value chain, in which South Africa started to implement around 10 years ago repetitive round of tenders or auctions, specifically in the solar and wind technologies. This has attracted a lot of international investors in the country, and year after year with these repeated tenders, these let me say tender mechanism has created a virtuous cycle that eventually managed to reduce substantially the tariff for the final clients. So this could be definitely one of the most efficient mechanisms that we have seen in the continent. I repeat, that is important to have a repetitive round of tenders year after years, because other countries, as I said, competitive tenders just for, let me say, a price setting mechanism only once. But if you don't do this exercise year after year, you don't see the full benefit of reducing the tariffs in the system.
Okay, thank you. But just to add on a little bit, could you add on what factors attract investment in this industry?
Yes, definitely.
Just very briefly, yes.
Yeah, definitely. Well, there are many factors, and we can talk for hours about this. So one macro category that I can say is everything that is related to the legislation and the regulatory framework specific to the sector. It has to be stable and sound, the regulatory framework. As all the participants here in the panel knows very well, years ago, Kenya allowed to develop renewable energy projects under the old feed-in tariff policy that has been later went into the transitional feed-in tariff period. And here we are in a situation, as also the PS probably mentioned, of this moratorium situation in which, let me say, the overall framework is not entirely clear. So for an international investor, it's very important to have long-term visibility on the investments, rightly because these type of investments take very long, many years to be developed.
Okay, thank you. Maren?
Yeah, our next question goes to Floris from Zulekom from Hydrobox. Hydrobox has a background from the Netherlands and Belgium and is active in Kenya here for a while. And I read that the company's mission is to empower people, transform communities through the power of running water. I think that's where hydro also comes from. Yeah. So you're currently operating already 3 off-grid power plants, providing power to 3,000 households. And I saw it in the first panel this morning. We saw the government wanting to go international investments going from 500 million to 10 billion, and you want to go from 3,000 households to 1 million households. So that is also quite ambitious. So the question is your business model is not the classical solar, geothermal, but hydro. Why?
Yeah, thank you very much, Maren, for this question. So first of all, a small clarification. Our company is Kenyan and Belgium, and that is, I think that's also perfectly in line with this EU Kenyan forum. Our CEO started in Murang'a County with his first hydropower plant. Now, as you mentioned, Maren, we have 3 operational. The reason for water is we started in Murang'a County. It's a rain-fed area, so we have rivers flowing throughout the year, and it's exactly that point that we made about stable base loads. So as we produce power 24/7, we can also provide power 24/7, and that is, for example, also interesting for these hydrogen solutions that you mentioned. And we've also now seen that hydro is also a perfect combination with solar, for example. We're now piloting also in one of our projects to have solar and hydro working together, so to sync it as to speak, because of course in the dry season the river produces a little bit less power. But we want to compensate that with solar, and that's of course in Kenya perfect because, well, there's a lot of solar going on. So that is the way we're operating right now, and we do think that with because of the hydropower, because of its availability of 24/7, we can also provide a very affordable tariff, and that's also what we can do in our mini grids to our customers.
Thank you. Interesting because you're mentioning the county where I was born, the Murang'a County. And you see, this is interesting. I'm coming to know how much hydro potential we have in this forum. So maybe when I get back home, I'll look at my rivers again. And maybe I'll talk to you about that. So thank you very much. And it's good to hear that these solutions are out there. You know, we have the potential out there. So I'll come to Joan Lasso from Alten Renewable Energies from Spain, a group of companies established in Spain since 2006. And what I find interesting is that it is an SME. It's a small, medium-sized company with about 30 employees that is a developer, an independent power producer in solar PV technology, active in Europe, Mexico, in several countries in Africa, and in Kenya, they have a power plant. And I think this is good to understand that this space is for big players and also small players, or big investors and also small investors. So, Joan, welcome. So just a question with your experience. You went through a lengthy process, I can imagine, to get your power plant up and running.
Mhm.
Maybe what are some of the challenges and lessons that you have learned in that process? And perhaps some light also on how you managed to secure the financing, so that we can also get to understand that even smaller players can fit in this space. Floor is yours.
Okay, thank you for the question. Good morning, everyone. Well, it has been 9 years, then a hurdle race. The expression of interest, it was in 2013, and it has been a lot of lessons learned in this long process. Initially, the main goal was to find a good place for solar in this country. We want to produce, of course, as cheap as possible. We find a very good area in the plateau area, in the Rift Valley. That is a very good zone for this. But to find the land, proper land for this kind of technology was a challenge itself. And later on, the whole process to develop the PPA, when we start negotiating with KPLC, there was not many experience on that. Then to create a bankable framework that is key for this kind of process, for small and also for big, especially for small and medium companies, but also for large companies. To create a bankable scenario is key. Finally, we signed a PPA if I remember well, in 2017. Also a government letter of support, after that legal opinions, etc. We were ready to proceed in 2019. We got the support of a commercial bank because the project, with the improvements in technology, etc., the tariff at the beginning was quite tough, but later on it was feasible. And we are proud to have the support of Standard Bank in this project. Also with Stanbic and the EIF, the European fund, the Emerging Africa Infrastructure Fund. Well, after that notice to proceed, it was by the end of 2019. It came, the hurdles had not been enough, and then it came the pandemic in 2020. The plant was, because of this, and mostly because of the post-COVID situation with huge problems in logistics, prices, etc. But we managed to reach commercial operation date in October last year, and the plant is working, is producing very well, and we got a very good relation in all these years with the Ministry of Energy in Kenya, with KPLC, because it's finally these kind of solutions, even that are not exactly fitting with the main problem this country has today in terms of energy, that I would like to talk a bit about. Is good and is in the path to the 2030 vision. His Excellency, the President, Mr. Ruto, tell us many times.
Okay.
Then the thing is, still with all these developments, our development and other developments, there is a significant amount of power coming from fuel. It's about 10%, 11% of the total power. That means 1.4 terawatts hour per year. That is a lot. And it's very expensive. The question is how to take this out. Is the aim, is the goal, to take this out, to avoid this fuel. How? Then the solution is with renewable energy, but renewable energy, unfortunately, it produces when you have resource, even hydro, even with a dam, not always you have enough water. Then storage is the solution.
Yeah.
And here there is a debate about how costly is storage, is competitive or is not. And I don't make you sick with numbers, but I think it's worth to do some. The cost of fuel, assuming some 60 to 70 gallons per megawatt hour of diesel, to produce this 1.4 terawatts hour per year is something about 350, 360, maybe some more in these days, million US.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Oh.
With that amount of money,
Okay.
is much more than enough to finance enough storage capacity to take fuel out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I
Thank
can
you.
elaborate more if you want.
Okay, thank you. What I want to do
Yeah.
is I wanted to get 2 questions for the PS so that we can release you. I can see you checking your watch. No, we'll come to them.
Yeah, but they
But-
want the PS to hear them as well.
Oh, okay. Maybe if the PS will give us just a few minutes, then okay. Then what
We make it very quick. We
If we
asked
make
the last two to make the first statement quite quick, but I think it's fair to the
Okay,
panelists
not a
that the
problem. And then
PS
we'll have 2
hears them as
questions.
well.
Then we release
Yeah.
the PS.
But then we also take the questions. So
Yeah.
PS, you have to bear another 5 to 10 minutes, please. Okay, we go to George Alur from Ecoena, also a Spanish company, and he's the managing director here in Kenya. And they're originating from Spain and are an independent power producer focused on wind, solar, and hydro, and have been active in the Kenyan market since 2 years ago, 2021. And my question to you is, give us your view on how we can enable lower consumer tariffs while ensuring a sustainable investment climate in the power sector.
Thanks, Marin. And maybe just to add, I also chair the Electricity Sector Association of Kenya. It's no problem. Yeah. And the KEPSA Energy and Extractive Sector Board. And I believe we will have many engagements with the government on this. But just quickly, I think some of the comments that have been raised by Matteo around competitive tendering. So we do need to move our procurement of power into a competitive tendering process that then allows natural price discovery instead of prescribing a price, which then gives comfort also for the investors that there is certainty that there's a process that are repeated, as Matteo also I think emphasized, a repeated process that, you know, if you come with your project today in this tender and maybe you're outpriced by your competitors, you're assured that in the coming years there'll be another tender, and you know the process is really straightforward and will be repeated. So that kind of also reduces your risks, which means you end up bidding with a lower tariff, which again goes back to the consumer tariff. But the other thing also is to look at taxes, levies, and things like that. At the moment, we are actually faced with a sudden increase of the WRA levy on electricity. I think they've done quite a huge margin kind of an increase from 0.05 per kilowatt hour to 2 shillings, which really has a direct impact on the cost of electricity. So such kind of things we also need to kind of talk with our fellow regulators. I know there is kind of an attempt also to gather funding for the government, but then other agencies should also be sensitive to some of the decisions that they make that affect the price of the consumer. But overall, I believe if we have a very clear, predictable process for onboarding new projects, then for sure the consumer prices will so the tariff from generation, which is a big component of the consumer price, will continue to trend in a lower direction. And then I would also just quickly want to also mention a bit about, let's look at how the market works. Let's see how we can enable different parties and I mean like CNI players on the grid, players who want to access the transmission system. How can we tinker and get a model that really enables all these people to invest and let the most efficient of them be able to produce the power or transport the power or whatever other ecosystem kind of service they want to provide. This will then allow us to overall reduce the cost of delivering power to our customers. But as I said, we are happy that we normally have regular conversations, at least at the association level, and this is something we can again take up in those conversations.
All right.
Thank you very much. Maybe we just
Allow-
discussed how we save some time.
Yes.
So
ahead.
Thomas from PowerX Energy, sitting next to me, our last panelist, represents a tech company from Slovakia. And I think it's quite an interesting other approach, not an energy producer, but also an efficient energy management system called Virtual Power Platform. And I think, Thomas, you can better explain what that is.
Yes. Hi, good morning. Hi, can you hear me? Okay. Hi, good morning. I'm Thomas, and I'm sorry for the phone. I just I don't check TikTok now. I just have it from 3 reasons. I don't like to use paper because usually I don't read paper notes, and also because colleagues are called me checker because I used to check facts which they are telling me. And we are a green company which focuses on the energy, and we have this virtual power plant platform. What is it? Usually, it's hard to explain. So let me simplify it as much as possible. It's a platform which focuses on the stabilizing power grid. It focuses on because as it was told here, the green energy is often violative, and the problem with the output of the energy is here. So the virtual power plant aggregates the battery storages, and with our AI, we are managing it. We are predicting how the power grid will behave, and we are focusing on that our client also get a much profit as possible. And also we are helping power grid because we are predicting when the power grid will be in depth of energy or it will be high. And then we can optimize this, our virtual power plant, to act as an additional power plant, kind of. That's why it's called virtual. So that is our focus, and I think it's a logical next step if when somebody or some country wants to focus on the renewable energy. Yeah, thank you. I was trying to be short.
That was very short, and I think now, James, you can take the one or two questions, depending on the time of the PS.
Thank you, thank you. So PS will just beg your indulgence, 2-3 questions. There's a gentleman whose hand has been up for a long time. So we'll have that gentleman and then another energetic gentleman at the back there.
Thank you
and
so
make
much.
them short if you don't mind, please.
I'll try to make it short.
Thank
you so much for the opportunity. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, Honorable PS for Energy. I'm François-Xavier Dubois. I'm heading the Eastern African region for Siemens Energy. I'm quite new to Kenya, soon to be established here to, let's say, strengthen our focus of Siemens Energy in Kenya, in part of the whole partnerships that you are discussing. And I have a concrete questions because we spoke a lot about renewable energy and about the renewable energy roadmap that you have for Kenya. And I believe from the discussions yesterday and the different contexts that there's also quite some ambition in hydrogen developments, which is also of great interest for us. And being new, I would like to hear from you what are, let's say, the challenges that you see for the development of those projects, and what are the concrete actions you are taking to overcome these challenges? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then the gentleman.
Yeah, I'm Jojo Pio from Baker Hughes. We are a company that, an energy technology company. My question to the PS is that in all this, because you have already mentioned that hydro, solar, and wind might not be considered 100% baseload, and therefore you are moving towards geothermal, which will of course take time. So my question to you was, is gas, importation of gas and using of gas going to be considered also in the energy mix? One question, and then the other last question is, are you also having some space for captive power where industries can be able to generate their own power and use it? This way you have more power for export and also for purposes of, let's say, accessibility to a majority of Kenyans. Thank you.
So, PS, the floor is yours.
Thank you for a couple of questions that have come up. Let me start by addressing the issue of WRA. It's an issue that when we saw it at this point in time, when we are having an issue of cost of power, it set us back. So we are addressing it. I don't need to diverge much, but we are addressing it. It is a concern to us, as much it is a concern to you. In terms of challenges of green hydrogen and what have you, one, for you to generate green hydrogen, there are several factors that you need into. Number one is water, because you need water through the process of hydrolysis so that you separate the molecules. Number two, you need green power. And when you look at it, the only green power that you can see as the base load is geothermal. And of course, wind as well. The coming up of a second wind plant around the north, around the Loyangalani area, then again, wind power comes in. The main challenge here is the pricing, because we want to develop green hydrogen and develop green ammonia for purposes of agriculture. So the pricing comes into play. That is actually our main challenge. Not even the availability of power, because we have to get the pricing right. Once you get the pricing right, then we can be able now to move forward. In regard to LNG, when I speak about having 2030 as green energy, LNG is part of green energy. And when we look at even our current thermal plants that we have, I think if I'm not wrong, it is only one that cannot be converted from HFO to LNG. So LNG is part of the equation in terms of developing green power by 2030. Captive power, yes. How are we addressing it? We are the tail end stages of bringing in the concept of net metering. What is net metering? Is where you generate your own captive power, you can sell to the grid, and you can get from the grid. The only thing that we need to know and we need to agree on is how much you can get into the grid and how much you can get out of the grid. Because you do not want to develop captive power and you end up selling more power to the grid than you are picking from the grid. So yes, that is a conversation we are having. Yes, there are rules that are being developed by EPRA, and once we have a way forward, we shall be able to publish them and give them out to you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I think what we'll do is allow you peers to make your closing remarks, perhaps touching on the incentives that are there for flow of investment capital into the renewable energy space, why Kenya is a place to be in renewable energy. So I'll give you that chance to just make your closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, moderators. Thank you, panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, when I was seated here, I realized if I'm not active, even I can start falling asleep because of what we call jet lag. So I have to keep my body active until I get a chance to sleep. Now, what are the opportunities that we have? We have immense opportunities. Let us leverage on one, the existing infrastructure that we have, both in terms of our road infrastructure, such that when we do manufacturing, we can be able to export our goods easily and get them out of Kenya easily. Number two, we need to look ourselves beyond our borders. What do I mean by beyond our borders? DRC Congo is now part of East African Community. I spoke about the South African power pool. Once we complete the section between Lesos and Tororo, 400 kV line, it gives us access to Uganda. Uganda gives us access to Congo, to Rwanda and Congo. Through the South African power pool, through the line to Tanzania, we have access to the East African power pool. And we also have access to the North African power pool. Though Egypt is a member of East African power pool, it is also a member of North African power pool. What am I saying? I'm saying that we have opportunities in generating power, not only for ourselves, but for the entire Africa. And that is why we also have to start having a conversation of nuclear power. Because when we exhaust the opportunities that we have, the resources we have in terms of geothermal, what else shall we use as baseload other than nuclear? So the plans are there. We are hoping that by 2034, 2038, we should have our first modular reactor in terms of nuclear, such that Kenya becomes a powerhouse. We are blessed with immense opportunities in Kenya. Road infrastructure, we are building up the transmission lines. I told you that once we successfully do the first 2 transmission lines at PPP, we are looking to doing more transmission lines in terms of PPP, and the tariff review that is underway, we are hoping it will capture in the issue of wheeling tariff, such that we can be able now to repay and make KETRACO more so I do not want to say a profitable company. I was in India and I borrowed a few things from Power Grid in India. It is one of the largest companies by capitalization in India. Its main role is in transmission. There is no reason why KETRACO should not be there where where Power Grid is. There is no reason why once you get KETRACO there, it should not also be listed at the Nairobi Securities Exchange. So the opportunities are there. They are immense. And as I said, success loves a prepared mind. We have a robust financial services system in Kenya. We have a robust human resource. We are endowed with good human resource. We also endowed in terms of ICT. So there is no reason why we should not we should not take advantage of all those things that I've mentioned and take advantage of them and project Kenya as a powerhouse in Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I wish you a successful afternoon, because I think it is already afternoon. And with those few remarks, asanteni sana.
Thank you very much, Bwana PS. Thank you very much. We'll allow you to leave now, but the session is still on. And one thing that the PS did not say is that he is awake because he took Kenyan coffee. It has to be Kenyan. Thank you very much, Bwana PS. Thank you.
Okay, now it's again a little bit interesting to improvise again because a lot of the topics were already covered, but I still want to give all panelists a second round. And if my question or our questions are not 100% or already answered, say something that is on your mind, but don't go longer than 2 minutes or 3 minutes. Then we can still have our final close. So we go same order. So Kabengele. How does Kenya enable the increase of solar and wind energy uptake? You talked about geothermal and hydrogen before, but now these are classic ones.
Yes, this has been addressed already a bit on the panel because we've been talking about storage. So to increase the uptake of solar and wind, we also have to look at storage options or hybridization options. The technology exists. The know-how is available. We are experts in hybridizing solar wind with other technologies. This does not always have to be battery, but as my colleague on the panel said, there are models to hybridize hydropower with solar. So this is possible, but we are all, in this panel, we've always talked about battery storage as a solution to provide baseload for intermediate power. We should also not forget that batteries have limitations. We have studies and we have know-how on how far we can use batteries in storing this and providing an energy mix that provides the least cost power generation. We should also look at pump storage. A country like Kenya has locations which are very suitable for pump storage, but we need incentives which can make that pump storage attractive, and then the pump storage units to provide energy system regulation for all renewable energies. Because as much as we want each and every IPP that does intermediate power to also put storage, it might be, from a system perspective, more attractive to have units that provide system regulation, like pump storage, and allowing a lot cheaper wind and solar into the system to achieve these amazing tariffs we've seen on the continent of below 3 cents. But this is hard to achieve if these producers have to consider storage. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kapengele. And we'll also allow the audience, please keep your questions. We'll allow you a few minutes also to ask the audience here. And I noticed that Engineer Kiva is back, so government questions If need be, I'll pull him to the front so that he can answer. So please ask, because this is your opportunity. So coming to you, Matteo, in your view, what are the key factors to attract investment? I think I had asked you previously, but I would want you to probably expound, because that is very important for people to understand why Kenya.
Yes, thank you, James. Indeed, the answer that I gave before was a bit short for obvious reasons. But coming back to what I was saying about the importance of a clear and sound regulatory framework is critical for the thing that we commented before. But why I say sound regulatory framework, because it has to be a regulatory framework that also is comprehensive and encompassing also of new business models and new technologies that we see in the market. So a regulatory framework that allows not to invest only in the, let me say, traditional and standalone projects, but for instance, allows for the implementation of, as Kabengele was saying, hybrid projects, implementation of storage system, and very importantly also on that regulates the C&I market, the commercial and industrial markets. We already seen in other African markets some private tenders happening with private deals between IPPs and private companies, and that can, let me say, unlock other efficiencies for the sector. Another very important factor for attracting international investors is, of course, something that even the PS mentioned. Everything that is related to the financing aspects of projects, what we call the bankability of project agreements, meaning making energy projects bankable in the eyes of the international lenders. In order to do that, you need, let me say, several things, but especially in some countries, including Kenya, it would be much better to have instruments to de-risk such investments and instruments to guarantee the off-taker. So what in Kenya is called a government letter of support. Alten provided an example of a project that managed to obtain that years before. And nowadays, the situation is a bit more, let me say, difficult to obtain a strong and solid letter of support, but it's something definitely needed.
Thank you.
Yeah, Flores, you didn't have much time in the beginning, but what ignited your business model, and who are your customers with your ambitious goals?
Thanks, Maren. So we have basically two types of business models. So one, as Matteo said, is more like a C&I model where we install hydropower plants for a big customer. But the second one is we also operate mini grids. And Maren, as you mentioned, our goal is to empower 1 million Kenyans by 2027. And we operate mini grids. And that's also actually the mission, how we started. Like our founder, Joe Magiro, he started with household customers. But only providing power to household customers, specifically in rural Kenya, where the KPLC grid is not that strong, is not an interesting business model. You will not make that much money to pay back your investments on the transmission lines, let alone the power stations. So we have adopted the ABC model, and that's also something that we've discussed with I think more and more providers implement that as well. But it's a model where we're really looking at, okay, where is a big anchor customer, as we call it. This is a customer that is, for example, tea factory, data centers, Safaricom, other companies. They take up roughly 60% of our power, and then the rest is for the small businesses and the households. So this allows us also for comfortable debt repayments, but also to provide an affordable tariff. And then lastly, the production cannot always be stable due to weather conditions, but we try as much as possible to do that. But also the consumption is, of course, like peaks, but also very big dips. So we still left with a challenge, like, okay, how do you sell that last portion of power? So we adopted also the model to have a lot of flexible users to our grid. So these can be cooling services. We're piloting with e-mobility. Basically services that require power when no one else has needed power. We're also doing that with data companies that use computing technologies. So that allows us really to sell all our power And yeah, get still a good income for return while charging very affordable tariffs. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Joan, thank you. You gave us a very good experience or outline of your experience with your power plant, and that is extremely important. So maybe you can tell us what are two things which you think can be improved? What should the government do to improve the process?
Okay.
And we have the ministry man here.
Yeah.
So, I think he's going to take notes because.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I don't know if, but for example, one thing that Matteo suggests.
You can pull the microphone near you. Yes, pull it up. Yes.
It is try to extend a framework for all the developers, not just going one by one, trying to negotiate, every single document that you need. It should be a good improvement. Would be that. On the rest, I would say so far so good. Now the key again is to increase this. Is we need to replace the fuel. The fuel is used for peak time. In this country, solar, as in any other country, can produce out of the daylight. And it's more typically wind it is, but not in this country. The wind power plants, at least with the data I have, are amazing in terms of capacity factor, but they produce mainly in daytime. Then it's clear that and the peak in this country is a significant one because it's almost twice the demand in off-peak time. Then it's clear that solution is to store the energy. Then this can be pumping. This can be. I think the next step would be to facilitate hybridization. This could be two benefits. One is to stabilize more these fluent power plants, and even using the interconnection points to increase to repower those plants would be a good way to improve and to help in the main problem, that is to cover the peak load.
Okay.
And how to finance that? I think just not even we don't need everything. It's a part of the fuel safe would be enough. This is very easy to understand with the actual numbers: cost of technologies, production, and the cost of fuel.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. George, I saw you nodding quite a lot on all different comments from the PS, from your colleagues. And I know as a KEPSA Energy Sector Board Chair, you have a good overview. So for me, it's now difficult to ask you a question, but maybe what do you want to add? What did we forget?
Maybe I just want to extend the commentary from the PS on the East African power pool. I think this is really one of those things that if as a country we seize and solve many of our challenges, even from what we are talking about here on ancillary services, on ramping up, on thermal during peak. If we basically East Africa, we are blessed with different sources of renewables. A lot of hydro in Ethiopia, same in Tanzania now with their big dam that they're building, lots of geothermal here. And by about 2025, if the numbers are right, we would have finished all the main lines that connect these countries. So at that point, we will now be in a place where we can not only retain the current contracting frameworks that we have, whatever is contracted with KPLC, but we also will be able to trade the excess. We'll be able to trade in shorter time frames. So this regional market, if we really use it well, can help us perhaps avoid some of the investments that Kenya would have had to make to kind of integrate varying renewables by just pulling on what resources our neighbors have. And in the same way, when it gets dry in Ethiopia and the hydrology of Ethiopia and Kenya and Tanzania is not necessarily the same with the wind and solar kind of variations, we can use whatever excesses that are allocated in whichever country to actually balance out the problems that other countries are facing. And I think this is one of the biggest game changers that will happen in this region in the coming maybe 3-4 years. So let's not only see it as an opportunity to export generation capacity, so power, but also an opportunity to integrate our markets in such a way that we can trade what we call auxiliary services, even from our neighboring countries. So I'll just keep it at that.
All right, thank you. Do we have any question from the audience before I ask Thomas to say something? So we have one question, and I can see a clock here, a timer that is ticking away faster than is usual. But we'll see. So we have one question at the back. So Thomas, just to shed some light, these smart energy solutions, what regulatory changes do you see required, briefly, so that the legal regulatory framework is as ready as possible to uptake this?
Okay, thank you for the question. I would say that for example, in UA, there is a big market on flexibility in energy, and it's part of our product also in UA that we are focusing on trading for the clients. With our virtual power plant, we are predicting the situation on power grid, predicting the situation of our clients' resources which they have, like solar plants and so on. They output and optimize it, so we know when to sell, when to buy the power from the power grid and to power grid. That would be great added value also here. But also we have other product here. We have a pilot project going on in Rwanda in urban area with 100 kilowatts. And we have there a battery with 100 kilowatt hours. We've even incorporated the EV charger for vehicles, and we are managing. Our goal is manage the power grid there, so that this is connected to solar power plants, and we are managing it so the output from the solar power plants would be stable, and people would have of course, the stable power, which is very prerogative in, of course, for usability of the green energy. So that is we have their assets like the solar power plant. We have there also some diesel generators, some distributed electric storage, and also we are managing, for example, AC, air conditioning, or other power machines, so that when there is a need, we are predicting that, okay, in this time these machines are off, and this time we will need the energy, so we are accumulating the energy from the solar power plants for the time when it will be needed, right? So this is, for example, our product here, and because the electricity price is high in Rwanda, the power grid is unstable, and we are helping also with this to power grid. Thank you.
Excellent. So we'll have the one question, please keep it short, and then I'll ask the acting MD of Ketraco and the MD of REREC to also just stand up and say a word or two, confirming that you're open for business. So we'll have that last question, and tell us who you would want in the audience to answer, including the gentleman from government.
Yes, those the producers. My question is to the producers, those who are into mini grid, solar, and wind energy. I have got two questions. One being a comment. Adaptation of community living in arid and semi-arid region in Kenya also include movement from one location or having multiple grazing fields. These are the same location where solar farms, wind farms are being established. The destructive by design of low carbon technology is a silent feature in the conversation, yet it is a time-taking bomb that needs to be addressed during ideation, project design, commission, and budgetary allocation. Also looking at the ESG. My question is about the e-waste. We need to address the issue of how to manage waste accrued from end-of-life products, right from the project ideation, design, and allocating budget. We currently suffer from renewable e-waste challenges. So for the solar producers, mini grids, how are you managing this challenge?
Right. Do we, maybe what I can allow is George to make a comment. I'll also encourage you, in the event that the answer is not exhaustive, your questions are quite long, walk over here and we shall have a chat also. But in the meantime,
well, thank you for the question.
George.
I think first on the solar e-waste, there's already an effort to put out regulations on how to handle waste after the end of life of these plants. Most of the plants actually are quite young, unless you're talking about very small systems that maybe had been earlier introduced into the market. The market is already, I think the players in the market are already aware of this challenge, and there's an effort to actually address that. On the first one, yes, you're right. When you design a project, there's a plethora of things that you look into. You are not just looking at the amount of megawatts you can put on the grid. So you're also looking at the communities. I would say there's a whole effort through the ESIA process and further through the IFC performance standards, which actually caters for most of these other things that you're talking about. So there is a deliberate effort actually to address those things directly. And lastly, there's a question you asked about solar panels and where we are not moving to the new ones. Basically, you cannot just finance any new idea that comes out. It has to be proven. It has to take time that the banks are comfortable with it, and then you can then adopt it. So even if today, let's say there's an innovation in solar that has come out of MIT, you will not see it tomorrow on a power plant. It might take time to go through tests and kind of comfort to make the lenders feel comfortable to invest in a big scale in that. Thank you.
Thank you. So what we'll do, I'll just have two quick comments, then I'll hand it to Maren to ask a final question from or comment from the panelists before I close. So the microphone, if it can be brought here, we'll start with you, Engineer Kiva. If you just introduce yourself. Engineer Kiva has been a veteran in the ministry, so he's a certain, please make sure he gives you his card.
Thank you, James. Good afternoon. My name is Engineer Sakiva. I'm the Secretary for Renewable Energy at the Ministry of Energy. I'm also doubling up for a while as the Acting Managing Director of a Kenya transmission company, Ketraco. So just to say, yes, indeed, the things that PS has talked today, that's where we are at the ministry. We're still looking forward to do much more business in power generation. The economy of Kenya has been bullish, and there are now plans to be able to accelerate the development of economic zones, development of cottage industries, and looking at the bottom up, the people at the bottom, and enabling them to be able to enhance their businesses. So we see the demand growing, and therefore for our own sake also, we are developing power and also to export to our neighbors. And therefore, we are opening that space. The PS did mention about PPP in transmission and looking at new technologies in electric vehicle charging, green hydrogen, green ammonia, industrialization. And therefore, it is good for those who have continued to work with us and those who are coming in new. We welcome Europe and we hope to continue doing business with them. Our doors are open. We'll also be available today to exchange contacts and to keep the conversation going. Thank you so much, James.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Peter?
You know, James, you're putting me in a very awkward situation, having had the PS talk and the energy secretary to the renewable energy. But I think I want to say this is a very nice discussion because if you look at what is happening in the country, the government is keen in terms of ensuring the country is industrialized. We are also keen in terms of ensuring that we'll take care of the energy needs through renewables because we are also concerned about our environment, lest we industrialize and perish. So these are good discussions. We need to continue. I think I confirm that the government is keen in work in terms of working with the private sector. Because if you look at our economy, again, if we really want to provide the energy needs for this country, funding by the government is quite minimal. So it comes in handy then that we're going to get into partnerships with the private sector with a view to developing this country. Thank you very much. Good discussions.
Yes, I can see the engineer wanted to say something.
I just wanted to add, for the purpose of engagement, we also have our colleague from Kenyan.
Yes.
Maybe later on, if you are engaging, Kenyan is our generator. So you have Elizabeth Jenga. She's the general manager for business development. So you can also engage. Thank you.
Actually, I was coming to her next, but because I had seen her. So, Kenyan, thank you very much for also coming because you're certainly the biggest player in that space. And you are in the diverse technologies also of power production. So thank you very much. And I'm sure there are good things that you have picked and feel free to also engage. I'll hand it back to you, Maren.
Yes, thank you. And also from my side, a big thank you for all the public players that you are here with us and to the companies, because you're always skeptical. Second day of the conference, 5 panels parallel. How big is the competition? But we see the room is still full. My favorite exercise at the end to the panels. A little bit of a challenge, and we start on the side with George and we go backwards. Please answer in 3 words or maximum 1 sentence, and we're going to be strict about it. My view or wish on renewable energy's future in Kenya.
Supply Kenya sustainably.
Good.
3 words, huh?
Yeah.
Sustainable, reliable, and affordable. 3 words. That's what I think the future is.
Well, joining all the comments, I would say economically and socially sustainable.
Cheap, reliable, good quality.
Indeed. Indeed. And fuel out.
So green, smart, and cheaper.
Thank you very much. And I would like to thank our panelists, in absence the PS, plus his team in presence, for this, I think, quite interactive and hopefully entertaining, lively, and informative panel. Thanks to all of you. Thanks to James. We even managed to moderate with a kilometer distance together. So we are only 1.5 minutes over time, considering the time that we started late. Thank you to everybody. And yeah, let's go for big European engagement in renewable energies in all the wide fields. Thank you all. And yeah, asante sana, asanteni sana.
Maybe what I can also say on behalf of private sector, in particular the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, would like to thank the European Union, the Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry,
No, I would have told you.
the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum, and all of you here for spending your time and coming and engaging. What we'd like to say is that these conversations are ongoing. So today we have this conversation, and I'm sure through the ministry we shall be having more. So it's a real pleasure. Kindly mix network. There's a lot to do in Kenya. Thank you very much.